Welcome to This Explainer. Today, we're diving into something truly mind-bending, a structure and a tradition that has completely captivated millions of people for centuries. We're going to explore the fascinating dual origins of the Jagannath temple in Puri. We'll be looking at its enchanting mythological roots, which honestly feel like they're straight out of a fantasy epic, alongside its incredibly concrete, documented historical timeline. It's a wild story full of divine logs, ancient tribes, medieval kings, and some seriously towering architecture. Let's get right into it.
So think about this for a second. How exactly did a set of unfinished wooden idols, originally worshipped in secret by a tribal chief deep in the forest, evolve into the center of one of India's most massive and revered pilgrimage sites? To really answer that, we have to look at two parallel timelines. First up, Part 1. The Quest for Nila Madhava as told in the Skanda Purana.
According to ancient texts, like the Skanda Purana, the origin story kicks off with a pious ruler named King Indradumna. Now, this king has a deeply vivid dream about a magnificent deity named Nila Madhava. Completely obsessed with finding this divine form in the real world, he sends his royal priest Vidyapati on a massive quest. That search eventually leads Vidyapati deep into the remote forests, right to a tribal village governed by a Sabra chief named Visvavasu. And as it turns out, Visvavasu had been secretly worshipping the exact deity the king was looking for.
What's actually super fascinating about this myth is the sociological phenomenon playing out beneath the surface. It represents the literal merging of orthodox Brahminical Aryan traditions with local indigenous Sabra tribal cultures. And the coolest part? This isn't just ancient history. This deep integrated connection is still honored today by the temple's Deita priests, who are actually considered the direct descendants of that very tribal chief, Vishwavasu.
That brings us to Part 2, the divine wooden log and its miraculous arrival.
Okay, so the myth tells us that after a series of really wild magical events, where the king literally had to wait in the heavenly realm for millions of earthly years, causing his original temple to get completely buried in sand, a miraculous sign appears. A divine wooden log just washes ashore. As the king is standing there wondering what to do with it, an incorporeal voice echoes straight from the heavens declaring, Swayam so avatarisyati. That basically means the log had arrived by its own divine wish to be installed on the grand altar.
Shortly after, a divine artisan, who is often identified as Vishvakarma, arrives to carve the idols from this sacred log. But he lays out 3 incredibly strict, non-negotiable rules. Step 1, the carving area has to be completely sealed off. Step 2, the work will take exactly 15 days. And Step 3, the absolute deal breaker, absolutely no one is allowed to interrupt the process.
Which leads us to Part 3, the incomplete sacred idols and a broken promise.
You know how these myths go, right? Human impatience almost always changes the course of destiny. Anxious, deeply curious, and basically unable to wait just one more day, Queen Gundicha forces the doors of the carving room open on the 14th day. By doing this, she totally breaks the sacred promise. And true to his word, the divine artisan instantly vanishes, leaving the massive idols completely undone.
So that sudden, forced interruption? That is the mythological reason why the iconic deities of Jagannath, Balabhadra, and Subhadra possess their incredibly unique, unfinished forms today. It's why they have those large, uncarved, round eyes and incomplete limbs. Yet proving that perfection is totally subjective, these unfinished forms were consecrated anyway, going on to become the supreme deities worshipped by millions upon millions of people.
Now, while the Skanda Purana gives us this magical, deeply divine origin story set back in ancient epochs, our historical records paint a different, yet equally fascinating picture. They ground the physical creation of the massive temple we see today firmly in the 12th century.
Moving right along to Part 4, the historical 12th century builder, King Anantavarman Chodaganga Deva.
When you look at the actual stones and mortar, the real historical credit for constructing the awe-inspiring temple structure that absolutely dominates the skyline of Puri goes to King Anantavarman Chodaganga Deva of the Eastern Ganga dynasty. And architecturally speaking, it's genius. The Jagannath temple represents a totally crucial evolutionary step in Kalinga architecture. It acts as the perfect structural bridge between the highly refined Lingaraj temple built earlier and the unbelievably grandiose Sun temple at Konark that came later.
Now you're probably wondering, how on earth do we know all these specific historical details? Well, a huge part of our understanding comes from this totally unique document called the Madala Panji. It's basically a continuously maintained, drum-shaped chronicle of the temple.
King Chodaganga actually established 24 separate Karana families just to maintain these records. They've blended royal history, land grants, daily temple administration, and even local folklore into one massive, living historical document.
Let's jump ahead to Part 5, Protecting the Temple Legacy during the Maratha period, from 1751 to 1803.
Look, keeping a 12th century temple up and running for hundreds of years is no small feat. When the Marathas took over Odisha in the 18th century, their contributions to the temple's survival were immense. For instance, sources note that local officers managed to successfully thwart a 1692 demolition order from Mughal Emperor Aurangzeb. Then the Marathas came in and implemented these incredible welfare measures. They aggressively protected traditional customs, introduced massive free food distribution camps called Annachatra, streamlined the administration, and, amazingly, exempted the poorest devotees, known as Kongalas, from paying any pilgrim taxes whatsoever.
Of course, that level of administration required some serious capital. To ensure the sheer grandeur of the annual festivals, especially the massive Ratha Yatra, the Maratha government released a staggering 40,000 rupees every single year, directly out of their own state treasury.
And they didn't stop there. They also managed some truly massive land grants. Take this one grant, for example, 960 bighas endowed by a local zamindar. That one plot of land alone generated an insane amount of revenue, nearly 148,373 rupees. All of that money was dedicated entirely to funding the daily food offerings, or bhog, for the deities. That kind of unwavering financial backing is exactly what ensured the temple didn't just survive, but thrived.
Let's look at Part 6, the Grand Chariots, or as we like to call it, engineering devotion. All of this immense funding and centuries of cultural blending culminated in what is easily the temple's most famous global export, the spectacular Ratha Yatra Chariot Festival. It's an incredibly inclusive event where rigid social barriers literally dissolve in the streets. The source texts provide these exact captivating details on the 3 massive chariots built for the journey, and every single detail carries profound symbolic weight. For instance, Balabhadra's chariot has exactly 14 wheels, symbolizing 14 universes. Subhradra's has 12 wheels for the 12 worlds, and Lord Jagannath's towering chariot features 16 wheels, symbolizing the 16 characteristics of the Supreme Purusha. It is literal physical engineering perfectly mirroring deep spiritual philosophy.
So as we wrap up this explainer, I want you to just take a second and consider the incredible journey we just took. From a secret, uncarved wooden idol hidden away in a forest, all the way to a colossal stone marvel protected and funded by sprawling empires. The Jagannath Temple is an absolute masterclass in cultural survival. It leaves us with a pretty big question. In a modern age where things seem to change so rapidly every single day, what can our institutions today learn from a monument that has successfully blended tribal myth, royal statecraft, and everyday human devotion into a completely unbroken tradition for nearly 1,000 years?